Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I am deeply honored to have been invited by the Young Scientist Forum of NIFS to deliver this seminar as a pre-conference webinar uh, on scientific writing skills for graduate students. So at NIFS, we provide mentorship for graduate students in the following different aspects. So based on our mentorship, the students can become conversant with the selection of topic, writing research proposals, designing experimental work, data analysis and interpretation, and writing conference abstracts, writing research articles, and writing conference proposals. So these are the different aspects we provide mentorship for graduate students at NIFS. So now we want to focus on mentorship outcome. So there are two things I have mentioned. One is psychomotor skill development. Second one is scholarly skill development. We must be able to understand what is the difference between these two. So in my humble opinion, we should get both. That means you have to develop psychomotor skill development. Similarly, you also need to get scholarly skill development as a scientist. So this slide shows the training outcome at NIFS. The first one is whether you are going to be a competent researcher or whether you are going to be a super technician. If you do not have the ability to speak about your research, if you do not have the ability to write about your research, then your training will be like ending as a super technician. But what we want is you need to end your career at NIFS as a competent researcher. Being a competent researcher, what are the attributes you will have? The first one is you should be able to write research proposals. Then after doing research, you should be in a position to write research articles. After research, you should be able to make good oral presentation in conferences. These three important attributes should be there in you when you complete your studies at NIFS. What are the challenges in scientific writing? First one, not knowing how to start. Very big problem for many. Not knowing what to include and what to exclude, right? So not knowing the flow of the writing. Some people write in an irregular manner, disjointed sentences, right? Next one is not knowing how to end the writing. So that's one thing, how they do not know how to start writing. Also, finally, they also do not know how to end the writing. What are the different types of writing NIFS graduate students face? The first type is writing an original article. Second type is writing a review article. Third type is writing a book chapter. Fourth type is writing a thesis. These are the four different types of writings we come across at NIFS. So in this presentation today, I will only focus on the original article writing only. So this picture shows the graduate research pathway for a graduate student at NIFS. What are the milestones in this pathway? The first one is they will have the topic, and after that they will start writing proposal. Then the milestone one, completion of the first part. Then after completing the first part, they will have the milestone two, completing the second part. So after completing the milestone two, then they will have to face the milestone three. So that is completion of part three. After completing part one, part two, part three, and finally thesis submission. So this milestone you should be able to clearly identify in order to progress the postgraduate work in a smooth manner and with a competent manner and with a proficient manner. So each and every milestone can contribute one paper. So we have to design your research journey in such a way that you will end up with at least 3 papers for a master's degree. The next thing is selecting a topic for your research article. I want to mention, many people wonder how to write a topic for an article. So you need to, according based on my experience, you need to select an article with minimum number of words. The topic should not be too long, and the topic should be very objective rather than giving some ambiguity, right? It should be very objectively address the research. Finally, the topic should be clear and eye-catchy, so it will attract the attention of everyone. Then after selecting your topic, right, after writing your topic, then you will face the challenges. What are the challenges? Next challenge is giving authorship to whom and who and who. The first one is your graduate advisor. Your team leader should be the corresponding author, but you need to be the first author, not your supervisor, because the work going to be reported is your own work, the work that you have done in your lab. So therefore, the first author should be you, and the corresponding author should be your mentor or the project leader or your team leader. And then you have to focus on the affiliations. Then you have to give the affiliations of those who coming from outside NIFS especially. Then since I am going to talk about the original article writing, so what are the main components of original article? So we call it is IMRAC format, IMRAC format. Then IMRAC format, what are the components? The first component is introduction. Second component, M stands for methodology. R stands for results and discussion. And finally, C stands for conclusion. So most of the original articles will have these 4 sections, and this format has to be followed, and you have to stick to this format in any original article. Now, after introducing the main components of a research article, then I want to discuss one by one. The first one is introduction. How to start the introduction is always a challenge for every graduate student. It should provide the background and justification. The introduction part should be dedicated to give an account of the background and justification. Try to provide context and rationale of the study, and the background part should cover the problem statement. So if your research is some kind of a problem oriented, then you need to stress what is the problem you are going to study. That is what we call problem statement. So it should be under introduction part. Again, under introduction part, background part should also have brief of the literature, because you may introduce the subject, but you should state what is the existing knowledge, what is the state of art in the topic. So you have to write it we need to avoid lengthy, unfocused reviews of the previous research, right? The literature should highlight what is already known in a brief manner. In the introduction part, the justification, there should be a justification part, should say why the study, for why you have undertaken the study. That question should be answered. In the justification part also should highlight the knowledge gap prevailing in that topic. Finally, in the introduction should end up by stating your objective and the potential benefit, right? So each and every research article, if you follow this guideline, you will be success. That means you are start writing, you are giving a literature available, and you are identifying the knowledge gap. And finally, you have to say what is your final objective and what is the value of this study. after reading the paper you are writing, they should gain what is the benefit. And also you have to pay attention to the grammar, always use past tense and avoid I, we, etc. So still we are discussing about the introduction part. Your writing style should kindle the curiosity of the reader, because you are writing for the general public, you are writing for research community. So any member from the research community, if they want to read your article, your introduction part should kindle the curiosity of the reader. The text should be arranged in a logical manner. Next one, many people are weak in this aspect, right? So whatever you want to say, so you have to start from one end and you have to proceed it in a logical manner. The following image shows how to arrange the text in a logical sequence. For example, if I want to talk about Kottamba's seed oil or something like that. So first you are describing about the tree, Kottamba tree. Second, you are speaking about the fruits, Kottamba fruits. Thirdly, you are speaking about the Kottamba seed. And finally, you are speaking about the Kottamba seed kernel. So that is the logical flow of the text. And if you follow that text, then definitely it will kindle the curiosity of the reader. For example, if I want to speak about avocado oil, so first I have to talk about the avocado tree, then avocado fruit, and then you have to speak about the avocado pulp, and from the pulp you are getting the oil. So that should be the logical sequence you need to follow in order for the people to understand what you are trying to say. We are still in the introduction part. So I'm very much emphatically say that you have to use simple English and very clear English, and always use smaller sentences rather than very complex sentences where sometimes might lead to grammatical errors. Always keep in mind that the paragraph is the essential unit of the thought. Therefore, properly you have to subdivide your writing into different paragraphs so that it will look very orderly manner. Now, after talking about introduction part, now we need to focus on methodology part. In the methodology, the first item coming in the methodology is sampling. The type of sample, how it is done, when it is done, these details should be provided in the sampling section. The very first thing under methodology is sampling. Second point I want to mention, sampling. People might ask how the sampling was done. Sometimes in a seminar, in a group meeting, these are some of the questions that comes. Whether is it individual sampling or whether you are going for a composite sampling by pooling the different samples. So they are interested. Therefore, you need to mention clearly whether you are following individual replicates or composite sampling. Next important aspect regarding sampling, how about the sample's integrity? Because you may collect your sample in a faraway place. Your lab is far away. So on the way, it may get spoiled. Therefore, you must state how it is preserved during the transport until it is arrived in the laboratory. For example, I myself have done some sampling in the Kalpitiya Peninsula in the northwestern province of Sri Lanka. Water sampling. But the sample was analyzed in Colombo, but on the way, it is a far away journey. Therefore, how I was asked to define how the sampling was preserved while on transport. Then the material section coming. In the material section, you have to identify experimental animals, plants, microorganisms. Their names should be clearly mentioned so that people will understand better. The subject studied, we must mention the number of individuals in each groups or number of animals selected for under each group, how many individual groups are there, how many under each group, how many are there, what is their sex, whether they are male or female, their age and weight, those must be clearly mentioned. If human subjects are selected, the criteria for selection should be described in this part. For example, if the human subjects are used in your research, you must obtain the institutional ethical clearance. We call ethical clearance. So many universities have ethical clearance committee. You have to submit your application. They will go through it and they will endorse, or they will ask you to revise or amend your ethical clearance form. And you need to mention about your ethical clearance committee meeting, on which day it has held, and it will have a specific number. You must be able to mention it in the section. And also finally, we are going to use various chemicals and reagents, and you have to specify the technical detail of the chemical or reagents used in the study. Under methodology part, again, I want to emphasize another aspect. So you have to organize the methods under different subheadings. For example, method description, if it is standard methods, for example, AOAC manual can be mentioned, AOCS manual can be mentioned. But when you are mentioning about the standard methods of AOAC, AOCS, or AACC methods, there's not completely necessary to write down the full detail of the process or procedure. You can just mention the method name, that is enough for standard method. If you are using other methods from the literature, you have to write the method in a brief manner. After that, you have to mention about data processing software, what are the data processing softwares used in the study, and you have to give the specific name and the version, etc. And finally, so under methodology section, you have to mention about the statistical analysis, whether you have used Minitab version, Minitab. If it is Minitab, you have to mention the version number in the method section. So after completing the method section, now we are coming to the result section, most important thing. Actually, we say it is the core or heart of the paper, because that is the most important part. It constitutes the new knowledge contributed to the world, right? The purpose of this section is to illustrate the findings in an orderly and logical sequence without interpretation. So you are just summarizing your results one by one after one, under different subheadings. Do not mess up the methodology part in this section, right? We have to, one thing I have to mention emphatically, there are some students, because of lack of data, they will replicate the methodology part here. You should not do it. You have to only dedicate this section for the data compilation, maybe in the form of tables or maybe in the form of graphs. So you should not mess up the methodology part with results part. So under results, again, I am trying to say you have to summarize your results in the form of tables and figures as mentioned before, and the data, whatever collected in the experimental process, you need to apply statistics. I just mentioned the Minitab, use of Minitab, and to see the similarities and differences in results, because whatever you are going to say, so you should be analyze those, the data should be analyzed in the proper statistical software to see the similarities and differences, and apply statistics to establish correlations, because correlation is another aspect of research, and there also you need to make use of the statistical softwares to come out with the what type of correlation exists in the data. After compiling results, the next section you are going to deal with is a discussion part. This can be subdivided into different subheadings and include subheadings exactly as stated in the instruction in the journal or in the conference paper. If it is a conference paper, you have to follow their instruction And you can divide this section under different subheadings. And in this section, you're trying to interpret your findings, whatever you have obtained in the research section, your study with existing knowledge in the literature. Because every experiment, you collect the data and you are trying to interpret using the existing literature. And while writing the discussion, you have to pay attention to the grammar. You always need to use past tense, and you always use passive voice, and you have to pay attention to the syntax and the punctuation. Therefore, these aspects are important while writing the discussion. Then finally, you are trying to end up in conclusion. So some people think conclusion is just a summary of whatever you have written, but I am not agree with that. So I always emphasize that conclusion part should highlight the actual findings of the study in a clear manner, right? So whatever your findings are there, rather than writing a summary, you have to pick up what I have found out, enlist one by one, and those enlisted one can be written as a paragraph. The conclusion section should highlight the value of these findings, because you may enlist your findings one after the other and one by one, but in the meantime, you have to mention what is the benefit of these findings to the scientific world. And again, I'm trying to say you have to pay attention to the grammar. You have to use past tense and passive voice, and you have to pay attention to the syntax and also punctuation. Then after writing the paper, your task is to prepare the abstract. You are not supposed to prepare the abstract before beginning the paper. You have to first write it down until the conclusion. After that only, you start writing the abstract. Now we need to know what is abstract. It is easier to write the abstract after completing the paper, right? Here also, to write the abstract, you have to follow the IMBRAC format. What is IMBRAC format? The abstract should have 4 different sections. One, the I stands for introduction. There should be one statement, one sentence describing the introduction of the study. And second one is a brevity of the methodology of the study. Then you have to include the results obtained in the study. Then finally, you have to mention what is your conclusion of the study and what is the benefit of the study to the society or scientific world. So these things should be bear in mind. And under drafting the abstract, you need to include list of keywords. And the list of keywords should be chosen very carefully. These words are important because they will be used by the publisher while indexing your paper in the bigger databases. Usually 5 to 6 keywords are just enough. You have to follow the instruction given in the journal, or if it is a conference paper, then in the conference organizing committee will state how many keywords should be mentioned. What is the word count, right? So it can be a single word. The keywords can be a single word or 2-word combination. For example, it can be GLC, it can be plant oils. GLC is a 1 word, plant oil is a 2 word, but a 2 word also possibly included as a keyword. So that you have to remember. Then after writing the abstract, there's a checklist, right? The checklist, right, shown in this picture. So the purpose, whether the purpose is stated in the abstract, you have to see whether your abstract contains the purpose and whether your abstract contains research method, that means methodology part in a brief manner. And next, you need to check whether your abstract contains your findings, that means conclusions. Then you have to check whether your abstract contains one statement regarding the value of the study or benefit of the study to the society. Again, abstract writing, some checklist I have mentioned. You need to, when you are writing the abstract, you need to use short sentences, clear sentences. Take care not to cite any references, right? There should not be any references in the abstract section, right? Throughout the paper, throughout the text, there may be a lot of references, citations. But when you are writing the abstract, you should not include any citation in the abstract. And if you are using any acronyms like GLC or HPLC or certain other technical word, you have to define the acronym and you have to abbreviate it. And also you have to pay attention to the word limit, whether it is 200 words or 250 words or 300 words. If it is a 200 words, it will be a big challenge to draft the abstract, but still possible, right? You can start with a bigger abstract and then you can contract it. You can brief it. You can constrict it so that it will become a smaller abstract, right? The word count can be, by rewriting, you can bring down the total number of word count. But one thing I must mention, nothing will be perfect. Therefore, you have to edit to improve, re-edit several times so that the final version will become very clear and free from any grammatical errors. And in this also, you have to check the grammar, syntax, and punctuation. Then regarding the original article writing, another aspect is plagiarism and similarity index. So plagiarism and similarity index came into our domain within the last 15 to 20 years. So because of the connectivity, internet, widespread use of internet. Now, in those days, people were reading the article and writing the summary from the article. But in these days, copy and paste system are going on because of the availability of the literature in the internet. Therefore, people copy others' work and write as it is. Therefore, they have developed a system called plagiarism checking. We call it similarity index check. So for this purpose, very common, there are many softwares used to get the similarity index, but very popular one is Turnitin. I myself use for my students' work. So to check whether there is any similarity, definitely there will be similarities. So when there is similarities, then we need to look at the article to revise it to bring down the similarity. So here I am showing a picture, right? So this is in the right-hand side. You will see a similarity report. You can see this report has been generated by Turnitin, and the Turnitin shows there is a 48% similarity in the write-up. 48%, almost coming half of the article is containing similarities. Sometimes your own previous paper will be similar, will making the similarity, increase the similarity. So at the first time when you run, the similarity index shows 48%. Then after that, you go for first revision. After doing the first revision, rewriting the text, then you can reduce the similarity index. So after that, you can again run the Turnitin software and see the similarity, whether similarity has come down to 20%. If it is not, then you have to go for second revision. So you have to rewrite the text. You have to change the sentences. Then again, after doing that one, again, you can run the software and see whether the text has similarity index below 20. In the second round also, if you are failing to meet the 20% requirement, then you can go for the third revision. And after rearranging the text and rewriting the sentences, putting different words, you can bring down the similarity index up to 20%. So if you have your final version, if it is reaching below 20%, then after that, you can consider it is not plagiarized, so it will be considered by journals. In this case, whenever the high similarity is there, then they will return the manuscript submitted to journals will be returned to their authors. It is a practice because almost every journal they use Turnitin or any other similarity checking softwares in order to check the plagiarism. Therefore, be careful, and you have to become very familiar with this important aspect. So you also should get training to rewrite the same thing in a different way, different way. You need to get familiarity to replace words with other similar words if the words are similar, so that you can improve your similarity index, and your paper will become more suitable for consideration. And finally, I want to say one thing for all the graduate students. So as graduate student, you have to master the art of writing. This art of writing you will not gain overnight. Writing is an art to be mastered by every postgraduate student. So how you become proficient in writing, how you become a professional writer, right? How you become a good prolific writer of articles. Look at the way how others are writing articles. So you have to follow others, right? So when you read published articles, then you will know in your field, in your particular area of study, how other people are writing, what is the style they are using. And also you need to look at conference abstracts, which are published in the conference proceedings, to see how abstracts are written, to see how abstracts are seen, so that you can get familiar with the style of writing, so that you also become very confident in writing articles as well as abstracts. And how we gain the perfection? Practice, practice, practice until you become perfect. That is the only way. We can give some kind of a guidance. We can teach you, we can give instructions, we can guide you, but finally it is in your hand. You need to practice several times, and writing should become a hobby for you, so that it will be improved over the time, but not within 1 or 2 months. You have to write years and years, so that you can become perfect in writing. And also you can get mentorship from your advisor, mentorship from your colleagues, and mentorship from senior scientists, so that you will become improved in scientific writing. So every one of you need to be ambitious to be a prolific writer. We use the word prolific writer. Everyone should target this status, right? For that, to become a prolific writer, first thing is you have to read it. You have to read a lot of articles in your field. And you have to write, and review, and rewrite, review until you polish your article, right? So it is a tedious task, but you must enjoy this art of writing. You must enjoy the art of writing. When you enjoy the art of writing, you can write, rewrite, and review until it becomes polished. And after that only, you can submit the final draft to the journals. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.